how does a revenge film inspired by a real-life manhunt become one of Steven Seagal's best movies? Set across Brooklyn, it turned a cop's murder into a story packed with mobsters, broken bones, and a villain who completely lost the plot. But once filming started, things started getting out of control. So what really happened behind the scenes? Let's find out. This is the crazy history of Out for Justice.
Steven Seagal.
I know this guy better than anybody else. I know the neighborhood better than anybody else.
Out for Justice.
In 1988, Warner Brothers took a chance on an unknown Steven Seagal with Above the Law. The movie performed way better than expected, so they moved him straight onto his next project, Hard to Kill. Around the same time, Bonanno family associate Constable Gus Farris murdered an undercover agent during a drug operation on Staten Island. He ended up being hunted by the police and the mob, and in '89 he was shot and killed in Brooklyn. Writer R. Lance Hill used the manhunt for his latest idea, The Price of Our Blood, which he wrote under the name David Lee Henry. He moved the story to Dyker Heights and built it around a detective, his partner, and a mob enforcer who had all grown up together. The aim was a rough, gritty movie about two men from the same neighborhood ending up on the opposite sides of the law. By 1990, Seagal turned into one of Hollywood's biggest action stars, and after making Mark for Death for 20th Century Fox, he returned to Warner Brothers to star and produce The Price of Our Blood, with John Flynn directing. Seagal liked the Brooklyn setting, the mob, and the manhunt, but started changing the script around his own screen persona. At the same time, Warner Brothers wasn't happy with the title. They wanted something more similar to Hard to Kill and Above the Law. So The Price of Our Blood turned into Out for Justice, where Brooklyn detective Gino Felino goes after Richie Medano, a drugged-up mob enforcer who murdered his partner Bobby Lupo. With Seagal already having the lead role, the next job was finding Richie. William Forsythe had just finished making Stone Cold when the script came his way. When he read it, he saw a proper New York street picture with the feel of mean streets, while the chance to shoot where he grew up in Brooklyn made it even more interesting for him, so he jumped on board. With Forsythe playing Richie, Jerry Orbach came in as Gino's captain Ronnie Doziger, while Joe Camper played his wife Vicky and Julius Nassau Jr. played their son Tony. The Medano family filled out with Gina Gershon as Richie's sister Patty, Anthony DeSando as his brother Vinny, and Dominic Cairnese and Vera Lockwood as his parents. From there, Joe Spataro joined as Bobby Lupo. Shereen Mitchell came in as Bobby's widow Laurie, with Dan Inosanto coming in as Styx, and Sal Richards playing Gino's mob contact Frankie. With the cast in place, David Michael Frank came in to handle the music, mixing his orchestral score with rap, Latin tracks, and bar band rock from artists including Cool JT, Teresa Belmont James, Louis Price, Kimberly Armstrong, and the Beastie Boys. Frank also worked with Seagal and Todd Smallwood on Don't Stand in My Way, then brought in Greg Allman to perform it over the closing credits.
Motherfucker, you knocked my teeth out!
Filming began in Brooklyn in October '90, and the issues started straight away. The first problem was a strike that threatened to shut down the New York shoot, so Warner Brothers told the production to be out of the city by November 1st and to complete the rest of the movie in Los Angeles, where the old wooden buildings on Lacey Street were to be used to fake Brooklyn. Then came the Steven Seagal issues. According to director John Flynn, he didn't like working with him because he was always late and caused delays and issues with filming. The problems didn't stop there. While filming the gruesome final fight, Seagal smashed Forsythe's face into a wall and cracked his tooth. It was also during filming this movie where the famous or infamous Gene LeBell incident supposedly happened. The story that has been told many times is that Seagal allegedly told Gene LeBell that nobody could choke him unconscious. So LeBell put him in a chokehold until he passed out, with stories claiming Seagal lost control of his bladder and bowels. Now Seagal has denied the whole thing and called LeBell a liar. LeBell, on the other hand, later said they did have a small altercation in front of around 30 stuntmen and cameramen. Now, one of these guys was legendary stuntman Steven Lambert, who worked on movies like Revenge of the Ninja and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. In an interview on the Viking Samurai channel, Lambert said an incident did happen, but it wasn't on the set of Out for Justice, it was actually on Marked for Death, where he and another stuntman were getting changed in their trailer when they saw Seagal, LeBell and two of Seagal's bodyguards talking outside of LeBell's trailer. So they walked over and everything was calm at first. Seagal and LeBell were talking about different techniques when Seagal started questioning the way LeBell applied a chokehold. LeBell offered to show him and slowly moved behind Seagal. Before LeBell's hands even touched his neck, Seagal sidestepped and drove his forearm in full force into LeBell's groin, lifting him about 3 feet off the ground. As soon as LeBell came back down, he stepped around Seagal, hooked his leg behind him and threw him on his back. According to Lambert, the bodyguards looked ready to jump in, but Seagal shook his head and told them to stand down. LeBell then held out his hand and helped Seagal back up. Lambert then ran off to get stunt coordinator Conrad Palmisano because he thought the whole thing was about to turn ugly, but by the time he got back, it already settled down. So based on this first-hand account, no one was choked unconscious, nobody pissed or shit themselves, but Seagal did get dropped on his back in front of everyone. Now there's a couple of other incidents, but they've came from IMDB, so you can take them with a pinch of salt, but they're worth saying. So according to them, Seagal broke down when a light failed in his trailer and tried to have a teamster fired. Another one of the claims is that Gambino-connected extras were used in the bar fight, and Seagal avoided touching them because of their family connections. Once filming ended, more problems followed. The first cut ran much longer, with more characters and more story. Seagal reportedly wasn't happy with it and removed some of Forsythe's scenes because he thought he was upstaging him. Then the movie received an NC-17 for violence, so Warner Brothers brought in Michael Elliott to cut the movie down again. Some of that removed footage included Richie stealing a new shirt from a clothing store. That scene still appeared in the trailer, along with another deleted moment where Gino's captain says the body count was rising. Some television versions later restored the shirt scene and another sequence where Richie's men break into Gino's home.
Body count's going up, Gino.
The movie premiered in April 91 and went straight to #1, taking in around $10.5 million. That made it Steven Seagal's third movie in a row that hit the top of the American box office. Eventually, the film finished with just under $40 million against a $40 million budget. On the other hand, the critics had to have their say. Daily Variety called Seagal a convincing action figure, while the New York Times praised the mix of swagger, wisecracks, martial arts, and Hollywood polish. The LA Times called it a cut above his earlier films, but the Washington Post found it unintentionally hilarious and said the whole trip felt unnecessary. After its cinema run, Out for Justice arrived on home media with its VHS release in November 91. The film finally arrived on DVD in May 99, while Warner Brothers later released it on Blu-ray in July 2007. Now for fans who want to add the movie to their collection, I've added a link in the description below, and there should be a card popping up on screen to help you check it out. Beyond that home media side, the studio left Out for Justice as a standalone movie, and Gino Felino never came back for another hunt. Now the bar fight took on a life of its own, when Gino walked into Vinny's place asking anybody seen Richie, then wrecked half the room with a cue ball, a pool cue, and anything he could get his hands on. Years later, clips, GIFs, and memes pushed that line all over the internet, and it became one of the main things people remembered about the movie. Of course, William Forsythe's Richie also stuck around. His coked up rampage became one of the most memorable villains from Seagal's movies, and later reviews kept singling him out as the highlight of the movie. Of course, the rumours and production stories carried on as well, especially the Gene LeBell confrontation, but as we've said, most of that was a load of bollocks. Of course, there was another issue that happened a bit later. Juliana Margulies later accused Seagal of sexual harassment. According to her, Seagal allegedly harassed her in a hotel room and made sure she saw his gun, but for whatever reason, she never filed any charges against him. As for my own take on Out for Justice, it's my second favourite Steven Seagal movie behind Hard to Kill, and as a no-nonsense action film, I think it's brilliant. Seagal does what Seagal does. He walks around battering people like the entire population of Brooklyn has personally got on his nerves, but the backstory and the character of Richie give it more than the usual Seagal film. Richie is completely unhinged, and that makes the whole thing so much more enjoyable. It's not a masterpiece, it's not Scarface, but for a Steven Seagal film, it's wicked. And of course, if you enjoy martial arts of the 90s, the fights are probably the best showcase of Seagal's Aikido out of all of his films. So overall, whatever you think of Seagal, you gotta give him some credit. He did make some good action movies in the early 90s. And we're not done yet. Next time we take a look at another classic movie. Until then, why don't you check out our previous video on Showdown in Little Tokyo. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.